pleasure to be here, and I always have this dubious honor of speaking after Roberto, and he makes it absolutely crystal clear message. You can't argue with it, and then I come and make it completely confusing and difficult for all of you. My question is, why is it that after such a powerful message that Roberto has given to you, when we surveyed 22 specialist preterm labor clinic in the UK last year, 10 out of 22 told us that they offer cervical cerclage as a primary treatment to high-risk women that they see with a short cervix in their clinic. I just don't get it. Why is it? So let me just try and explain why would that be. Roberto, I did warn him about that last night when we met, and Roberto was quite shocked by this data, and this is why I'm going to show this to you again. This randomized trial that you could argue has actually put this to bed, where Kip, who else, screened and his team screened 47,000 women, identified 470 women with a short cervix, and then randomized them to stitch and or expected management, and there was no difference. There was a, you could argue, slight difference or slight reduction in deliveries between before 33 weeks, but certainly wasn't statistically significant. And you would argue that this should have put it to bed. Cerclage is not a treatment for short cervix found on a routine second trimester scan. This was the conclusion of this paper, and I was part of this analysis. Now, life is never simple, because you can blame me. We did then a Cochrane review of the cervical stitch for preventing preterm birth in singletons, because idea being that one trial is never enough. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody else who did ever randomized controlled trials of cervical cerclage basically got the same message. And because from clinical perspective, to my mind, in my practice, I see four very, very different populations. Women who have a really, really bad history, but they just didn't have an opportunity to have the scans. So you need to make a decision at 12 weeks because they can't wait for cervix to get shorter. High-risk women, when you do only one scan at 20 weeks. High-risk women that we see now increasingly in the preterm labor clinic with serial scans, or low-risk women that Roberto was passionately talking about, that have no history, they're in first pregnancy, and you see them at 20 weeks for only one scan and you find a short cervix. Intriguingly and interestingly, despite what we expect, there is virtually no difference in effect of cerclage in any of these four groups, and what we see is a marginal 20% reduction in preterm birth for when you put the stitch in. And it is reassuring to know that clinicians who have been putting stitch in, me including, are not completely crazy, and that cervical cerclage does work a bit. So what was surprising, that there are no huge differences depending on the indication for history, although I passionately wanted for this difference to emerge. So, and data for perinatal mortality were equally very consistent with this reduction in preterm birth. So you have a marginal 20% reduction in perinatal mortalities as well. Statistical significance is very much more difficult to reach because data are, the power of these studies have never been to tackle perinatal mortality. And just to remember the aspirin story, it is pretty much similar, you know, the notion that somehow in perinatal medicine we are going to have these phenomenal treatments that are going to abolish preterm labor, preeclampsia and growth restriction is just not going to happen. We are looking at a small incremental steps like these little socks that Silke was talking about. So our conclusion was that you do need around, you need to put 17 stitches, aggressive though they are, to reduce one preterm birth before 37 weeks. Bear in mind that Roberto was talking about preterm birth before 33 weeks. So So this is much lesser benefit in terms of efficacy because it is prevention before 37 weeks. But there is some hint that it can actually prevent perinatal mortality. So stitch is not quite dead and buried. And interestingly, Roberto did say that when we tried to compare indirectly, this is fiddling with the stats, to see whether actually whether we can prove that vaginal progesterone wins heads down, we were statistically unable to prove so. There are hints that vaginal progesterone performs better, but not certainly doesn't win yet heads down. So current evidence suggests that seclazine vaginal progesterone may be comparable, but ideally, what would you expect from me to say that definitive evidence should come from direct randomized comparisons with childhood morbidity as the primary outcome? Why not preterm birth? Because I keep asking this question, and I will continue to ask this question, because every time we give even a natural progesterone to pregnant women, allow me to be nervous because we do not have a good good history and track record with giving different things to pregnant women do. So, yes, I would like to see more long-term follow-up studies, despite the fact that short-term benefits are, and I entirely agree with Roberto, are quite compelling. But let me just tell you something that I really want to talk to you about, and this is Arabin pessary, which you have all been waiting for. How does it work? Well, I have no idea. There are different theories, but for all of you who have done a bit of gynecology, you know, when you have a prolapse, you put a pessary in and then kind of it works, I guess. Then Elena and her team from Barcelona published this randomized controlled trial because we heard Arabin talking about it for years and nobody really believed her. And then this Barcelona team did a fantastic trial and published it in Lancet, and still nobody believed them because it wasn't a clear picture. Because in parallel there was some randomized controlled trial that disputed that, one from Hong Kong, and then who else? Then Kypros comes in with his team and does another randomized controlled trial, and his trials are always 10 times bigger than anybody else. And I apologize, this is in Spanish because I'm waiting for Kypros to give me the data in English, so the only thing that I could get was a Spanish slide that was presented in Mabea in 2013. As you can see, there are some considerable differences between Barcelona trial because of much higher risk of preterm birth of 27% in the population of women with a short cervix compared to only 11% in England, despite the fact that there is a very, very similar proportion of women with a previous preterm birth. So effectively, this was a trial, those were the trials in women who were low risk, or at least 90% of them were low risk and had one scan at 20 weeks with a short cervix. Now this is not the population that I see, because in Liverpool we are just simply, where I work, we are just simply not ready, or we can't afford to offer routine screening for 8,000 women. We only offer serial scanning to high-risk women in our preterm labor clinic. So the question that I wanted to know for my clinical practice is not what to do with the low-risk women with a short cervix, because thank God I don't see them, but what to do with the high-risk women who previously had preterm birth before 34 weeks. And when we couldn't do the randomized trial, so we kindly asked team from NIH, Dr. Owen and his team, to give us the data from United States on a women in this very population, asymptomatic, previous history, short cervix, after serial scan. That is the population that I look after. So 142 women from States, our 59 treated with vaginal progesterone, and Spanish 42 with Arabin pessary. And when we looked it side by side, and I looked at the data from Barcelona, we just could not, from Spain, we just could not ignore it. So in my clinical practice, on the 1st of January 2012, in my clinic, we decided to swap from vaginal progesterone, which I religiously believed in, to Arabin pessary. Absolute heresy for me, but we did it because we couldn't ignore the data, and we thought after 6 months that it's going to be all disaster and everybody's going to hate Arabin pessary and women are going to start delivering preterm and we'll go back to vaginal progesterone. Didn't happen, and those are the data from last week. We continuously audit and continuously monitor to see what's happening. Arabin pessary is cheap, much cheaper, and it's much simpler to use. And I can be assured of the compliance. When I give to my population, a lot of deprived women, when I give them vaginal progesterone, I have no idea whether they're taking it or not. So, my question to you is, should we continue? Should I continue with Arabin, given the data, particularly now the Kyprosis trial, or should I go back to vaginal progesterone? Well, there is only one answer, and that is a Liverpool answer. If in doubt, you randomize. So, in September, on the 1st of September, we are going to start randomizing these women to seclash progesterone and Arabin pessary. And then we'll see. Twins. Well, there is one good piece of news that I can tell you not to confuse you. Don't do stitch in twins. We are just going to publish an update of Cochrane review. There are no surprises. It doesn't work. In fact, for any of the subgroups, short cervix, long cervix, blue eyes, curly hair, doesn't work. In fact, actually, it's probably, for the reasons that I can't quite understand, it goes in the opposite direction. So please don't do it. Vaginal progesterone, we have seen, Roberto, may work. We need more trials. Arabin pessary for twins, potentially quite exciting. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to invite you to come to a session in the afternoon, and you'll see two heavyweights fighting. One, Ben Moore, and his team are going to tell you that it works. Kypros is going to tell you that it doesn't work. I think it's going to be fun. Now, I'm sure this is the question that you want to ask me. You have bombarding us with all this data, but just tell us what do you actually do? So here is the current Liverpool approach, partly evidence-based, partly something that we kind of just do. We don't screen low-risk women, and I know Roberto is going to have a go at me. Elective seclash for failed treatment in previous pregnancies. In high-risk women, we measure cervical length using centiles, gestational age corrected from 16 weeks, and then we are going to start randomizing from 1st of September. And we are happy to change the protocol as soon as the new evidence emerges. This is what I think the discussion is going to look like, and I am the guy in a white shirt. Before we start, let me just answer the question which I'm sure I'm going to be asked, given the compelling data that Roberto has shown, how can it justify not screening 8,000 low-risk women? And below is my answer. But there is also one other answer, that when we roll it out worldwide, we need to have reassurance that we are going to have people who are going to, dare I say, know what they are doing. And let me just give you one case, anecdotal, non-randomized, non-evidence-based, that really concerns me. This is what I was shown when I was in Chile lecturing on the very same topic by my good friend Pedro Kusanovic. She was a multiparous woman, had one vaginal delivery and 2 previous cesarean sections, all after 37 weeks. She was very happy, very normal pregnant woman, and just made a mistake to come to a eager obstetrician who had 20 weeks when she was completely asymptomatic, did a transvaginal scan, and she had a 9 millimeter cervix. This is her cervix with a little bit of sludge. She was given azithromycin, progesterone, and Arabin pessary. She had amniocentesis, and then because it wasn't enough, then she had a stitch. And then it was a great success. That's what or not. And this is what really, really worries me about universal screening and rolling it out to millions of people. When it's confined to a short, in a high-risk women with preterm birth, it is much easier to control. That is maybe not an argument for everybody, but it is certainly at the moment argument in why we don't do it in Liverpool. Thank you very much.
Here, Zarko, we'll now have a discussion for about 15 minutes. If there are questions, microphones are here somewhere up front, so please come if you have a question. Roberto, do you want to react? Should we screen the low risk women?
Definitely, confidently, we should do universal screening, because clearly we can identify the patient at risk, and there is something that we can do. And the evidence, I think, is clear that we can bring this.
And the majority of preterm birth is in low risk women, isn't it?
Let me just make the point that of all preterm babies, only 15% will be born to mothers who have a prior preterm birth. So if we really want to make a dent, we need to go with universal screening.
Thank you so much. Would it be possible to focus the screening depending on the cause of preterm, of a short-term cervix?
So the question that Roberto asks is, can we focus on the cause? And the causes of a short cervix could be congenital, very rare